February 2025 brings us closer to understanding our emotions as North Node shifts deeper into Pisces and Mars continues its retrograde through Cancer. The warrior planet finally goes direct on February 23rd, giving us a chance to breathe. That is, of course, until Venus begins its retrograde right at the start of March. Let's take a closer look at the month of February and break down most important transits for all 12 signs. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive readings. I'm coming to you from a snow-covered New York City. It looks really beautiful outside, even though it's extremely, extremely cold. Thank you for stopping by. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you've been here a while, thank you so much. If you want to show your support, please take a few seconds to leave me a like, a comment, subscribe, and press that notification bell. Watch more of my content, say thank you by buying me a tea, a coffee. Any token of appreciation encourages me to put out more content, encourages me to share my knowledge with you guys, and I highly appreciate you supporting me. Before we dive in, a couple of announcements. If you have questions about your natal chart, you want to understand what the year coming up has in store for you, or you're planning a wedding, you want to understand your compatibility, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I offer a variety of services. I can help you answer important questions, look at the future, get closer with your partner, pick a date for your wedding, or even help you move to a different location. The questions you have, I have the answers for. Additionally, with this month, I'm starting a new offering. If you'd like to know the best times and the best dates for relationships, for business actions, for anything like that, on my website, you can pick up an additional content, election, astrology video for the month of February. I include a PDF file as well, so you can have a written summary of the best dates and times, as well as what they're good for. So definitely check out my website. You can find it in the shop. In the shop, you can also find my 2025 astrology planner filled with insights about astrology, space to put your chart in, dates that are important for you, breakdowns, journaling prompts, summaries of the month to come, summaries of the eclipses and every single full and new moon. Perfect tool to have on your desk, not just for planning your week, but also for helping you maximize the energies that are coming up and avoid the downfalls of the astrologically difficult times. And I'd like to highlight my Sunlight in a Jar 3 candle. This one captures the sun in Leo. We are in the Aquarius season. The sun is in its detriment in Aquarius as it's a colder time of year. There's less ego-driven energy, and most of us need to have a healthy ego. We need to be able to stand up for ourselves and assert ourselves and make sure our rights are not being sort of taken advantage of. So this candle can help you find confidence, warmth, and courage. It can bring you support of people in power and inspire you, help you creatively express yourself. Highly recommended, especially if you were born with the sun in Aquarius or your sun in Libra. If your sun conjoins, squares, or opposes Saturn, if it's placed in the 2nd, 8th, 6th, or 12th houses, which are dark houses, this is the choice. Highly recommend. Okay, so we're talking about February. February highlights a few zodiac signs. We have a lot of action in Aquarius until February 18th. From February 18th, actually even from February 14th, there is beginning, a lot of planets are starting to accumulate in Pisces as Mercury enters, then the Sun. They join Saturn, Neptune, and North Node, which has recently entered Pisces. Venus spends most of the month in Aries. Mars is in Cancer all month, retrograde until February 23rd. And of course, Pluto is in Aquarius, Uranus is in Taurus. Those guys are not changing. So I'm going to break down the most important events. Like I said, once again, if you want to know the best times, the best elections of the month for love, for business, for writing, for creativity, for social media, pick up the electionary video I did for the month of February on my website in the shop. And we're going to talk about the main events. We're going to describe the transits, just sort of give you a summary, and then I will look at each zodiac sign and give you tips on what might be coming up for your sign specifically. So we start on February 1st with Venus conjoining Neptune. Venus is in Pisces, coming together with a dreamy, sensitive, creative Neptune, right? So this is romantically a very compassionate, loving, soulful time. You may feel like you are closer to your partner, you're more spiritually tied to them. Sexually, you may enjoy sort of more like slow, sensual romance, right? And creatively, you may feel more inspired. So it's a pretty good time to feel creative, and you may notice that you're more maybe altruistic and more willing to help people around you. February 3rd may bring positive news as Mercury trines Jupiter. Additionally, you're feeling optimistic, you're focused on growth and expansion. And if you know, once again, you know, it's a new offering, so I might mention it more times than normally, but if you want to know the exact time in the day that is best for taking action, the Electionary Astrology video on my website in the shop covers that very much, very detailed. On February 4th, Venus enters Aries. So Venus loses a little bit of power when she goes into Aries. She is now leaving the sign of her exaltation, Pisces, and goes into her sign of detriment, Aries. She will be here until March 27th, starting its retrograde on March 1st. We'll talk more about the retrograde next month. But Venus in Aries is an Amazonian goddess, warrior princess, right? Xena, the warrior princess. So she's independent. She wants relationships that allow her the freedom. She wants relationships with masculine, assertive, active partners. Sometimes the downfall of Venus in Aries is that she might be a little bit too independent, a little bit too combative. She might prefer the chase or the drama over the peace in relationships. So learning how to redirect this energy into being, you know, maybe fighting for a common cause or exercising with your partner, battling for something together instead of battling against each other could be a lesson for you for the next couple of months. And then of course Venus will come back into Aries after she's done retrograding through the final degrees of Pisces, but that will be in April. Jupiter stations direct on February 4th, which will bring forward momentum in the Taurus house of your chart, potentially more optimism into your life, and it will be the best for Sagittarius and Pisces heavy people. You may feel like you're breathing the air of spring and new beginnings. February 7th, Venus sextiles Pluto. Very passionate, very charming. You are sort of attractive, but maybe a little bit like mysterious. There's something alluring to you. It could be powerful for creativity. Let's say for creating objects or writing novels or poetry or anything that has a little bit of that like tinge of mystery, darkness that is connected to Pluto. February 9th, we got Mercury Cazimi in Aquarius. Beautiful moment, right? Mercury Cazimi is the exact Mercury-Sun conjunction. The two are hanging out in the secret room of the palace, talking about the future. So because Mercury is the planet of intellect, you feel more empowered, smarter. It can bring depth of understanding, depth of insight, conversations that are revealing, encounters that are supportive. On the same day, we also have Mars trining Saturn, which is another very productive and focused and growth-oriented transit. Mars trine Saturn is perfect for a sustained effort, putting your energy into a project. Mars is, of course, retrograde, but it's trining Saturn, and both are in the water emotional signs. So I think it can be quite a productive day, both with the clear mind connected to Mercury Cazimi and the focus, determined action connected to Mars trining Saturn. Immediately after that, on February 10th and 11th, we have Mercury squaring Uranus, and then we have the Sun squaring Uranus. So this is a little bit of like you've discovered something and now you run into a surprise. You have to fight for your convictions. There might be, Uranus can bring like sudden breakdowns in communication, sudden breakdowns in technology, in your vehicle breaks down, right? Or your computer breaks down and now you need to problem solve. There may, of course, be breakthroughs and important questions around freedom and independence and innovation, right? Positive change in life. We have Sun and Mercury in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus. It's like, how do you marry your beautiful view of the future with the resources you have at hand? And on the 12th of February, we also get the full moon at 24 degrees 6 minutes Leo. So pay special attention to this full moon. If you have planets, angles between 21 and 27 degrees Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, and Scorpio, it may be most important for you. Here we are completing the chapter started in early August 2024 with a new moon in Leo, and we are potentially facing challenges between the rational mind and the ego, right? There might be, with the Aquarius season, there might be a bit too much focus on community and other people and sort of future. And I think the full moon in Leo will say that, well, my goals are also important, my needs are also important, right? Like, let's not forget that we have sort of personal desires as well. So it may pin your mind against your heart, and it will encourage you to not forget your heart in the process and to sort of tend to what's important to you, to make sure that in the search for the good of all, you're not forgetting the good of the little shiny, beautiful, unique snowflake you. And of course, you know, it's gonna show up the most in the Leo sector of your chart. On February 14th, Mercury enters Pisces, will be here for a couple of weeks until March 3rd. Mercury in Pisces is dreamy and creative and intuitive and inspired, but Mercury is in its detriment in Pisces, and so because Mercury likes to deal with little details and it likes to break things apart, Pisces is all about uniting things. And so sometimes the little details may slip your attention. You may notice that you're like lacking focus and clarity, that you're forgetting to text people back. So of course, you know, make sure you're not ignoring really important situations and important people, but you can benefit when it comes to using this transit for writing poetry, for maybe even creating content, or being, you know, taking on projects that are more spiritual. I'm sitting on a heating pad, so I'm gonna adjust the warmth because I think it's going, now it's like I'm too warm. Yeah, so Mercury enters Pisces. 4 days later, on February 18th, the Sun enters Pisces and will stay here until March 20th. The Sun in Pisces it's an interesting shift, right? We're going from an analytical, mind-driven, intellectual Aquarius into the dreamy, imaginative, sensitive, compassionate Pisces. So you crave rest, you appreciate sleep more, you prioritize potentially getting away and taking care of your spiritual self. You may notice being a little bit sort of not very grounded, right? Sometimes Pisces doesn't necessarily like dealing with the mundane, boring reality, so a desire to escape might be present. And like, it's good to escape into creativity, reading a book, right? Taking a walk on the beach, but beware of the more like dangerous sides of it where you're escaping into unhealthy behaviors. On the positive, you may notice feeling more inspired, more compassionate, more willing to give of yourself and your energy, and potentially more rewarded for the pursuits that are creative and imaginative. And like, of course, Pisces season with North Node being in Pisces and the upcoming new moon in Pisces on February 27th will encourage us to connect with our true dreams and follow those dreams quite like passionately and with determination. February 20th, Mercury squares Jupiter. Could be the time of like partying and having a good time, but it comes with a danger of speaking out of order, being boastful, exaggerating, maybe overscheduling, overestimating your time. So a couple of days before, a couple of days after, be careful with taking on too much. February 23rd, Mercury trines Mars, and Mars goes direct. So Mercury trine Mars is a lovely connection between the intellect and the action hero within you. So it can bring passionate speech, ingenuity, intellectual pursuits, ability to express yourself kind of clearly and concisely, potentially. And then Mars going direct is, of course, a major energetic shift. We've had Mars retrograde since December 2024. So we're finally wrapping it up. You may experience an increase in your energy level and an increase in your confidence. Mars will stay in the sign of its fall, Cancer, all the way until April 18th. So if you're looking for any astrological help, pick up my Mars Kazemi candle. It's the best for this type of fallen Mars that struggles with expressing aggression and may sort of suppress frustration until it gets too strong and overpowers you. And you may, it might be especially great for those who are born with Aries and Scorpio on the ascendant, as well as potentially Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra, other cardinal signs. Mercury conjoins Saturn on February 25th, and you are productive. It's a great time for filing paperwork. Your mind is focused, maybe a little bit conservative, or, sort of sometimes Mercury Saturn can be like a little bit narrow-minded or a little bit like difficulty of thinking as you're just like so zoned in on the topic at hand. Doesn't need to be a bad thing. Just watch out for being a bit too conservative in your thinking, but do direct this energy towards like intellectual pursuits and, like I said, applying for visas, filing paperwork and stuff like that. February 27th, we get Mercury sextile Uranus, original, innovative thinking, open-mindedness, new fun ideas, all of that is great. And we get the new moon at 9 degrees 40 minutes Pisces, especially important if you have planets between 6 and 13 degrees Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, or Sagittarius. This is not an eclipse, but it's in the sign where we're going to get an eclipse in September. And it's kind of a follow-up to the eclipse we had in September 2024. So reflect on September 2024 in terms of what has changed in your life. And we'll talk more about this when we break it down for all the signs. But it's, it's a sign of new beginnings. It's a sign of inspiration. It's a sign of you connecting to your passions, your dreams, and your true desires, and giving yourself a permission to believe that, you can make things come true. There is a square to Jupiter, the ruler of this new moon, which might suggest that while you're feeling inspired, the ruler being in the sign of its detriment in Gemini and in the sign of picking things apart might suggest that you're also dealing with a little bit of self-doubt. So don't limit yourself too much, but perhaps heed the warning of Jupiter and figure out a step-by-step plan, right? Or like let yourself come up with some kind of strategy before you go full speed ahead. Before we dive in and talk about all the 12 rising signs, I just like to mention that on my website, you can pick up the lectionary breakdown of February to give you the best times and dates on when to take action romantically, creatively, spiritually, professionally. And on my website, you can pick up a horoscope subscription, either a written one or an in-person consultation every month, where I will guide you through the events to come, hold your hand, and help you make sense of it all. So let's take a look at the 12 rising signs. I'm doing a more general overview. Once again, if you want a more detailed horoscope for yourself, get a subscription on my website. If you are the lovely Aries rising, in January, we've had a major shift of the nodes into Pisces and Virgo, highlighting your focus, sort of a stronger need to focus on your spiritual life, on the mysteries and passions that you're not quite acknowledging. Mars has shifted and continued its retrograde in Cancer, bringing attention to the topics of home, family, and living situation. You may have taken more professional action during Capricorn season and explored new social connection, found new pursuits and new dreams, with the Sun and Mercury shifting into Aquarius and conjoining Pluto. February starts off with Venus entering Aries pretty early on. She goes into Aries on February 4th. And this is your sign, right? This is the goddess of love and beauty coming into your sign. She will be here until March 27th. She will go retrograde on March 1st. So you are feeling more charming. Venus in the first house is always beautiful for taking a look at your skincare, your wardrobe, your clothes, making improvements to your hair, to your style, to your look. You may feel more creative as well. Of course, as Venus goes retrograde, some of this will need to be reconsidered. So perhaps think twice before making permanent changes to your appearance that you might later regret. On the same day, February 4th, Jupiter goes direct in your third house, which could be supportive for any type of messaging. If you're waiting for answers, if you've been working on a project with your sibling, or even like trying to move and dealing with some kind of logistics, Jupiter going direct in your third house can bring more forward momentum. You'll receive that message you've been waiting for. It will be easier to start a business or deal with any business matters. Maybe the life of the sibling might improve as well. Your fourth house of home and family is active all months. Mars is retrograde here until February 23rd. So you're still reviewing, right? It's your chart ruler. It's retrograde. It's in the sign of its fall. So you may feel, especially until February 23rd, while Mars is still retrograde, you may feel like you're a little bit unsure, right? You're questioning the direction of life. You're questioning where you see yourself, where you want to go. You're maybe feeling uncertain about living in the right place. Mars retrograde might bring up questions around moving or rebuilding, redecorating, expanding your home, or maybe downsizing your home, right? There may be some matters involving family members that feel a little bit unclear, or even you may even feel like you're looking back at your childhood and what brought you joy, what made you happy when you were younger, and wondering how to bring more of that into your life now. As well as if you are a parent, right, there might be certain matters involving your children that you're looking at and asking questions about. Mars going direct on February 23rd is beautiful. It's still going to be Mars in its fall. So if you need additional help dealing with uneven energy or passive aggressiveness of this Mars, pick up my Mars Kazemi candle. But be ready that maybe things will still kind of take time for you. You might get some answers around late February, but you may not fully feel like you're courageous, brave, and active self until Mars leaves Cancer, which will happen in mid-April. And of course, we still have, eclipses in Aries and Venus retrograde. So the confusion that the year began with is not quite over yet, even though Mars will go direct on February 23rd. With the Sun and Mercury in Aquarius until February 18th, and we just had a new moon here, your focus on your social life is still quite prominent. You're maybe going out more, you're maybe networking, you're maybe building alliances with people and starting partnerships, starting new friendships. It could be quite a busy time for weddings or the events of the season. Maybe a lot of your friends are having birthday, right? Which is quite possible if you are an Aries rising and your house of friendships is Aquarius, having Aquariuses as friends. Do you, by the way, notice that you attract a lot of Aquariuses or people with strong Aquarius placements? I'm curious. But yeah, like it's a busier time socially, professionally, good time for group projects, good time for connecting with people you haven't seen in a while. We have the full moon in Leo on February 12th, which completes the cycle, creative cycle, romantic cycle, or cycle in the life of your children that got started in early August with the new moon in Leo. It opposes Mercury in Aquarius, so there might be a little bit of tension between your pleasure versus your obligations to other people, even your desire to do certain things versus what your friends want to do or what your partners, your allies want to do. So needing to find some kind of balance while making sure you're not sacrificing your personal desires is quite strongly highlighted here. There might be a little bit of disagreement around money, finances, priorities, which leads to a shift in your romantic relationship. Once again, maybe something needs to be adjusted in your children's life or in your creative project, right? Like if you don't agree with people, the full moon in the 5th house might be the time you need to rethink your strategy. And it could be, it could be you not agreeing with your partner about the school you want to send your children in, or you disagreeing with a creative collaborator, or even you not seeing things eye to eye with a friend. And so the full moon in Leo invites you to figure out a way to kind of either agree to disagree or come to an agreement. From February 14th, the planet starts to shift into Pisces. Mercury enters on the 14th, the Sun enters on the 18th, and there's a new moon in Pisces on February 27th. And so whatever was introduced with the North Node shifting into Pisces in January, you're continuing to explore this month, right? On some level, you may notice that you want to spend more time alone, that you're becoming a little bit more introspective, introverted as you're getting ready for a renewal with the Sun entering your sign in March. You're maybe focusing more on your mental health, investing into therapy, doing more yoga, even traveling for spiritual purposes, going to a yoga center, going to some kind of like healing retreat are all possibilities here. And I think getting in touch with your spiritual desires, with your passions, with your kind of things that your soul needs and wants, I also see as strong possibilities here. And so the new moon, as a new moon that is a follow-up to an eclipse in Pisces we had in September, and a new moon before the eclipse we're going to have this September, is, to me, feels like it's asking you to be honest with yourself about what you need to really honestly let go of, and where are you being self-defeating versus what do you need to commit to and get more involved in. If you want to know the best dates and the best times to initiate action in February, pick up my electional astrology breakdown in the shop section of my website. And if you're curious to know more, do not hesitate to book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. You can also pick up a horoscope subscription to talk to me every month. All of that on my website. If you are a Taurus rising, in January, you've dealt with North Node shift, with North Node entering Pisces and South Node entering Virgo, which brought attention to your alliances, to your connections with other people, as well as introduced you to new dreams. Mars shifted into retrograded back into Cancer, your third house, encouraging you to revisit some agreements or disagreements with siblings, renegotiate some contracts, redo some of your maybe logistical matters, rewrite some of the paperwork. Additionally, with Capricorn season, you may have traveled or dealt with legal matters, studied, wrote, published some of your work, and the Aquarius season with Mercury and the Sun conjoining Pluto in your 10th house brought opportunities for new professional action. Potentially, you may have faced some shadows, right, and faced some maybe darkness in your existing job, or discovered something that is like a burning passion and realized what you really need to commit to. In February, early in the month, on the 4th, Venus enters Aries, your 12th house, and you desire more rest. Venus represents what is attractive to us, right? What we desire. And so when it goes into your 12th house from February 4th until March 27th, she will go retrograde on March 1st, you seek to retreat. You're more driven to get away, to spend time in solitude, maybe go away with your partner, right? Venus represents love. Watch out for the more shadow side of Venus in the 12th house. She might love drama a little bit too much and not always be aware of that. So kind of, being too dramatic in relationships, instigating some conflicts without fully realizing that that's what you're doing, as well as going for people. Like the challenge of Venus in the 12th could be choosing people that are lost, that have self-defeating tendencies, that are unavailable or toxic for you. The more positive manifestation of Venus in the 12th would be going for people that are spiritual and that have been through darkness but came out on the other side. So look for opportunities to heal, to be more thoughtful and clear and self-aware with this transit. And it can also be quite important for working in solitude and maybe getting more clear on what your soul desires. Jupiter stations direct in Gemini on February 4th, which can bring more forward momentum to your house of money, which is good news if you've been waiting on a payment or you've been dealing with some kind of, maybe you've been saving for something. So Jupiter going direct might bring the things you've been waiting for your way. Mars continues its retrograde through Cancer until February 23rd. And so this energy of rethinking your everyday life, maybe revisiting some disagreements with siblings, reconnecting with siblings, rewriting or redoing some of your written projects, some of your creative projects. That could be a great opportunity for that. Mars does go direct on February 23rd. So if you've been dealing with a sibling but not agreeing, or you have a neighbor that has been, fighting with you over your lawn, Mars going direct might bring a sense of okay, we've been confused, now we can figure things out. Mars also rules your house of relationships. So if your partner has been affected by this transit, they may start to feel a little bit free and more clear, right? Mars is still in the sign of its fall until April 18th. It stays in the sign of Cancer until April 18th. So while you will notice some forward momentum, it's still Mars that struggles with sort of direct conflict and may choose to be a little bit more passive aggressive and energetically not always fully, straight on. So if you want astrological help, I highly recommend my Mars Kazemi candle, because that is Mars in rulership and more empowered. Your professional sector is highlighted until February 18th with the Sun here. And we just had a new moon in Aquarius on January 29th. So you're exploring new ideas, you're making professional moves, you're maybe dealing, like I said, if there was some kind of tension professionally, the rest of Aquarius season might encourage you to reevaluate and figure out whether you can deal with the existing environment, and if you do, what needs to be changed, and if you don't, where do you need to move forward. So Aquarius season, I think, brings these important matters to your attention. We also get the full moon in Leo on February 12th, which is a chance to rethink your living situation and maybe address some family confusion, connect with your heart, right? The full moon in Leo says that there's been a lot of focus on other people in your life. You've been busy with work, you've been thinking about your mental health, which is, I guess, your life. But then, Mars in the third house is all about community and siblings and neighbors. And so the full moon in the fourth in Leo on February 12th connects, tells you, but what is it that you want? What is it that you need to be the better sibling, to be the better friend, the better ally? How can you fill your cup, and how can you treat yourself better, right? So the full moon in the middle of Aquarius season may encourage you to spend some time at home, spend some time with family, dress up, speak up, tell your loved ones how you feel, and maybe make some changes around your living situation and around your relationships with family that allow you to be the better version of yourself. From February 14th, we start to have more focus on Pisces. Mercury enters Pisces on the 14th, stays until March 3rd. The sun follows on February 18th, and we get a new moon in Pisces on February 27th. So this is important, right? Because we've had an eclipse in Pisces on September 17th, 2024. We're going to have another eclipse in Pisces in September 2025. So North Node also has just gone into Pisces. So you're in the beginning of this 1.5 year long cycle of connecting to your true desires, of opening yourself up to new possibilities. And these possibilities are likely to include your community and your ability to make the world a better place. So I think the Pisces season and the new moon in Pisces are all about connecting to your dreams, but also figuring out, I guess, which people, if you're struggling answering a question of what inspires you, what you're dreaming about, think of the people you have met that have left a true imprint, that left a true mark on you, right? And think of how do you want to be that kind of person, or what type of experiences, what type of connections have affected you the most. And so Pisces season and the new moon in Pisces might encourage you to think of the role you want to play in the world and what you want to be known for. If you're looking for more information about February, you can pick up my election astrology report breaking down the most important transits, breaking down the most sort of beneficial dates and times for when to start action professionally, personally, romantically, creatively. You can also pick up a horoscope subscription to work with me every month, or you can book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. For the beautiful Gemini rising, in January, your professional sector was quite busy as the nodes entered Pisces. North Node went into Pisces and South Node went into Virgo, highlighting both your career and your home life. Mars retrograde through your second house brought up a need to review finances, rethink your financial protocols. And Capricorn season actually highlighted your house of shared finances, debts, resources. So both questions around resources, give and take dynamics, needing to pay off debts in order to have more stability to be able to follow your dreams, as well as questions of more karmic dependencies and karmic relationships and agreements that you have with other people that perhaps you were ready or feeling ready to release. As well as later in the month when the Sun and Mercury both entered Aquarius and conjoined Pluto in your 9th house, you may have discovered passions related to education, travel, writing, and publishing. So your focus on those matters could have increased. In February, we start the month with Venus entering Aries on February 4th. This is your 11th house. Venus stays here until March 27th, goes retrograde on March 1st. Venus in the 11th house is very social, so you may notice that you're going to more networking events, you're connecting with friends, you're enjoying doing things in company of people you like. You may even notice falling for a friend or looking at a friend from a different lens, as well as starting partnerships with friends is quite likely. Of course, be wary of the fact that Venus will go retrograde, so some of the action, some of the projects, some of the connections you form may need to be tinkered with and adjusted. Jupiter goes direct in your first house on February 4th. This is awesome, right? This is the planet of optimism, expansion, growth, abundance in your house of identity. So if you've been feeling a little bit lost in the last 4 or so months, Jupiter going direct will bring you more courage, more optimism, more desire to learn or teach, travel, study, write, and publish. It may also give you more courage that is necessary to be the best version of yourself. I quite like this shift. Mars continues its retrograde through Cancer until February 23rd, and you're still rethinking your finances, rethinking your priorities, right? Second house is not just money, but it's also your values. So questioning your goals professionally, questioning how much money you have and how you want to use it, how to grow your income, maybe even looking as far as wondering how has your family's financial life or the beliefs that your family had about money affected you. As Mars goes direct on February 23rd, there might be a bit more forward momentum when it comes to finances. Mars does stay in Cancer until April 18th, and Cancer is the sign of its fall. So while Mars direct is absolutely a positive shift, there's still likely to be a little bit of passive-aggressive energy, especially when it comes to talking about finances. And energetically, it kind of goes through ups and downs. If you're looking for astrological help, Mars Kazemi is my choice for the next couple of months as we still deal with Mars retrograde and Mars in the sign of its fall. The Sun stays in Aquarius until February 18th, and Mercury is here until February 14th. And we just had a new moon on January 29th in the sign of Aquarius. So whatever new ideas involving education, involving writing, publishing, legal matters, involving travel, you have discovered, you're continuing to work on those. And it could be quite like an inspired time, especially with Pluto here. I think with you maybe dealing with the subconscious matters, digging into your psyche, becoming clear on what's serving you, what's not serving you. You may get inspired and even find a new belief, a new philosophy, a new sort of religion for yourself, as well as figure out what is your true message. Speaking of true messages, we get the full moon in Leo, your house of communication, your house of siblings, community on February 12th. And this is a true moment of needing to weigh what your mind tells you versus what your heart desires, right? The full moon in Leo is very ego-driven, very personal. It's happening in your third house. It opposes the rational Mercury in Aquarius. So some of your deep heart desires might not be quite in accord with what your mind is telling you. And you may feel a little bit of ideological inner conflict. I would recommend that you listen to your heart and you look for ways to honor what's important to you, right? The full moon in the third might bring important shifts in the relationships with siblings, a need to have an important conversation. There might be a test you're taking or a course of study you're completing. There might also be a creative project that you're wrapping up. If some kind of writing matter that you need to attend to. And I think, to me, it also feels like with the new moon we just had in Aquarius, with Pluto being in Aquarius, the Sun and Mercury, so much attention on this, outward dreams that you have, that the full moon in Leo says, like, make sure you like where you are, make sure you have everything organized, make sure the place out of which you're working makes you happy. And so looking within, looking at your desires before you go big and, you know, go big or go home. The Sun enters Pisces on February 18th, Mercury enters Pisces on February 14th, and we get a new moon in Pisces on February 27th. So this is really important, right? We've had an eclipse in Pisces, your house of career, in September. Have you noticed a sense of like tectonic shifts, the earth jiggling? I guess the earth doesn't jiggle, the earth moving, right? Because the eclipse we had in September could have encouraged some kind of professional change. It could have made you realize what is not working. And so now we just had the North Node enter Pisces, right? And we're going to have another eclipse in Pisces in September. But before we get there, the new moon and the Sun and Mercury in Pisces really encourage you to ask yourself what gets you inspired, what gets you excited about life, right? And so over the course of the next year and a half with the North Node in Pisces, you're likely to go through really big shifts professionally. And this new moon is your first official opportunity to get your sights on new horizons and to figure out what it is and get going, right? For some, it might be a new career. For some, it might be no career at all and staying at home with family. For others, it might be a new role in an existing career. If you remember what was happening in your life, if you were old enough in 2006, 2007, this could be your clue on what this cycle might be about. Of course, it's not going to be the same, but it could bring similar themes. Please share if you remember. And as always, if you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Pick up a horoscope subscription to connect with me every month. Have me look at your chart, give you guidance. As well, this month, I'm starting doing electional astrology report with best dates and exact times to take action professionally, personally, romantically. Pick it up in the shop section of my website. There is a written report as well as the video report. For the beautiful Cancer rising, in January, there was a lot of attention on your house of education, travel, writing, and publishing, as well as your house of communication and everyday life as the North Node entered Pisces and South Node entered Virgo. Mars continued its retrograde through your first house of identity, maybe creating more frustration, more uncertainty as you ask yourself big questions. Your house of relationships, partnerships, negotiations, agreements, and contracts was active during Capricorn season. And Aquarius season with the Sun and Mercury conjunct Pluto offered you opportunities to become honest about agreements and relationships that do not serve you, maybe pay off some debts or figure out how to reclaim your independence, right? And sever ties and connections with people and situations that are difficult or unhealthy for you. February, early in the month, on the 4th, Venus enters Aries, your 10th house of career, status, public life. She will be here until March 27th, going retrograde on March 1st. So it's interesting, right? Because initially she comes into your 10th house and you're like, I'm ready. I have this new idea, I'm inspired, or you're talking to bosses, you're making connections, and then when she goes retrograde, there might be a need to rethink some of that and review some of your connections. But in February, she's direct, so you're free to explore and go into new directions. Just be ready that things may not be as they fully appear because of the upcoming retrograde. On February 4th, we also have Jupiter going direct in Gemini in your 12th house. And if you've been dealing with any spiritual questions, if you've been looking at, if you've had a strong desire to get away, to relocate, if you dealt with some kind of like passion that you weren't quite sure how to bring into the real world. Jupiter going direct and starting to make its way towards Cancer, which is your sign, which is my absolute favorite transit for all cardinal signs in 2025, should feel like coming out of the water after holding your breath for a while. So it is, of course, you know, we're still dealing with Mars retrograde, but Jupiter going direct is one of the first planets going direct. Of course, after that, we'll talk about Mars and then Venus in April. But Jupiter going direct is this sort of opportunity to heal, to clear anything that doesn't serve you, and to experience more forward momentum spiritually. And then later in the month, more potentially tangibly. So Mars is retrograde until February 23rd. It's retrograde in your first house, and you're asking important questions about yourself, your goals, your priorities, your health potentially, your time, right? You're looking at Mars retrograding in the first house could be the time when you're busier, or you're examining your health, your self-care, your priorities, and things may feel a little bit uncertain. But when Mars goes direct on February 23rd, right as it goes direct, the energy might feel a little bit sticky as you're like zoomed in and focused on one point. But as it starts to move forward again, you're likely to get some clarity about your goals, about your health, about even your look and your style and how you present yourself to the world, or what you want to be known for. Mars stays in Cancer until April 18th, and Cancer is the sign of the fall for Mars. So while there is forward momentum, it might still be a little bit difficult to deal with conflicts. You may notice a tendency to be more passive-aggressive, as well as uneven energy levels. I highly recommend my Mars Cazimi candle, because we still have 2.5 months of this energy to deal with, and Mars Cazimi is Mars and Scorpio, so it's a lot more empowered and dignified, and could be quite helpful, especially if you're feeling like this transit is affecting you a lot. Mercury and the Sun stay in Aquarius until February 18th, which is a continuation of that focus on clearing debts and either severing unhealthy relationships, unhealthy dependencies, or starting new partnerships, right? We had a new moon here on January 29th. So it can also be about agreements and negotiations and alliances that are lucrative for you, that are supportive, that maybe you're aligning yourself with someone else, and temporarily you don't have like as much freedom, but in the future you'll have more freedom financially or spiritually. The full moon in Leo, your second house, on February 12th might offer you a chance to kind of step away from the partnerships for a second and figure out what you want and what your values are. It might be the time you're connecting with your heart and you're having a bit of a knee-jerk reaction or a bit of a more subjective reaction to something that's going on, getting a chance to express your opinion, talk about money with someone. There is a bit of like mind versus heart energy as the full moon in Leo opposes Mercury and the Sun in Aquarius. But I think you gotta be connected to your heart, and you have to sort of know what's important to you so that you can be a better partner, so that you can make more fair agreements. Additionally, the full moon in Leo on February 12th may offer you a chance to pay off a debt, to complete some kind of cycle started in August 2024 when we had the new moon in Leo, let go of a job or get a raise, get a promotion, maybe, wrap up a contract that you've been a part of and open yourself up to something new. We begin to notice a lot of focus on the Pisces sector of your chart, which is your 9th house, from February 14th as Mercury enters Pisces. And then on the 18th, the sun enters Pisces. And then on the 27th, we get a new moon in Pisces. So all of this is an indicator of an expansion in your life, right? This could be an intellectual expansion as you're getting ready to go back to school, as you're getting ready to start speaking a foreign language, as you're getting ready to begin teaching or writing, right? There might be some kind of important new beginnings there. Or there is a literal sort of expansion as you get ready to travel, to relocate. You're getting ready to marry a foreigner and like move to their country, right? So there might be major new beginnings here, especially if we think of the new moon on the 27th as like a midpoint between two eclipses. We had the lunar eclipse in Pisces in September 2024, and there's another one coming up in September 2025. So what was happening in September 2024, the North Node being in Pisces for the next year or so, is very much an indicator of you being ready to like get out of your comfort zone in your neighborhood, which is South Node and Virgo representative of, right? Which could also be like your own head and the things you tell yourself and the ways you limit yourself, and you're getting ready to like venture out into the unknown, into the new world. Please share what you think. For more guidance, visit anastasiadoesastrology.com. You can pick up the electional astrology report breaking down the highly beneficial times this month, the dates and the times, and I'm showing the charts in that report to help you maximize the month. You can also book a reading or pick up a horoscope subscription, all at anastasiadoesastrology.com. For the beautiful Leo rising, in January, North Node entered Pisces and South Node entered Virgo, encouraging you to rethink your priorities and values and maybe let go of some personal debt and figure out which connections and which financial engagements are worth keeping versus which ones are not. Mars retrograded into Cancer, potentially suggesting that you had to deal not only with physical, tangible enemies and frustrations, but also with more internal enemies, you being your own enemy. Maybe you've dealt with some sleep issues or some kind of mental health problems escalating, and so Mars retrograding in Cancer, which continues throughout pretty much the entirety of February. Mars is in Cancer all of February, but it's retrograde until February 23rd. You're still continuing to kind of like work through any mental health, sleep issues, and maybe even seeing a connection between your physical health, between your work, right? And trying to make sort of positive shifts. Mars will go direct on February 23rd and will start to move away from your 12th house, but it is still in your 12th house until April 18th, even though the retrograde is over and there is a momentum shift, but it's still in the sign of its fall. So I think you may still deal with some like repressed frustration and have to deal with like inner fears, doubts, hidden enemies. Even, some of you might have like actual people who sabotage you. So trying to figure out how to deal with that will be a theme. But I do think Mars going direct on February 23rd will be a positive shift. In January, you also may have dealt with more work matters, maybe made some doctor's appointments during Capricorn season and Aquarius season, especially January 21st and January 29th. Couple of days before, a couple of days after, brought a lot of attention to your house of relationships as the Sun and Mercury entered Aquarius and both conjoined Pluto. So in February, right away at the start of the month, besides Mars, which we already talked about, we have Venus entering Aries, which is your 9th house. She enters on February 4th, stays until March 27th, will go retrograde on the 1st of March. And of course, the retrograde might suggest an element of like needing to turn around, needing to rethink some things. But initially in February, Venus coming into your 9th house makes you feel inspired to write, to publish your work, to learn a foreign language, to go on a date with your significant other and learn something new together, to take a trip. When she stations retrograde in March, some of that may need to be, reconsidered. Venus is always about love, and when she's in the 9th house, for those single of you, it might be about dating someone foreign or connecting with a foreign publishing house. Like there might be some kind of like foreign interest coming into your life, whether it's romantic or creative. Depends, right? But the retrograde might suggest that there is some type of like a need to renegotiate, maybe even a need to retake some exams and reconsider some agreements, rewrite something if you are a writer. Jupiter goes direct on February 4th in your 11th house, which should be a positive shift for your friendships, for your social media presence, for even your creativity, right? Jupiter in the 11th can both give you like a green light. When it's direct, it can give you a green light to dream bigger, and it can also help you find allies who are more supportive. So Jupiter going direct in Gemini on February 4th is very encouraging, I think. So the focus on relationships continues. In January, there was maybe some intensity on the 21st and the 29th, 2 days before, 2 days after, with Sun and Mercury conjoining Pluto. It could have revealed shadows. You could have discovered some secrets, something about your partner that you didn't know before. You could have faced your own fears, obsessions, and insecurities. And so I think after those revelations and after the new moon we had on January 29th, with the Sun in Aquarius until February 18th, you're getting a chance to perhaps implement better relationship protocols. You're working through your own doubts and your dark feelings. Maybe you're noticing that your partner is working on their mental health, and you're maybe more even kind of actively dating and partnering up with people, negotiating, signing contracts. There is a full moon in Leo in your first house on February 12th, which is quite appropriate because I think as there is a lot of focus on other people, the full moon in Leo gives you a chance to look at yourself and connect with yourself and maybe release something, right? The full moon completes the chapter started with the new moon on August 4th, 2024. And you may go through like a physical shift if you, let's say, maybe dealt with an illness, you're maybe getting over that illness. Creatively completing a project is also a possibility, especially if you've been writing about your past, about your life. And considering that there is a full moon in your first house of identity and it's opposing the Sun in the 7th and it's also opposing Mercury in your 7th house, it seems like there are a lot of important questions about like how your goals and your values and your priorities fit with your relationship, and where do you need to maybe be more accommodating and less ego-driven. Like where do you need to release some of the ego, right? Versus where do you need to reconnect with your ego? Because we all need a healthy dose of ego. Otherwise, we will all be completely like sort of, doormats, right? You need to stand up for yourself. So the full moon in the first house, there's also a square to Uranus in the 10th. So it could also be about your career, I think, quite strongly. It does encourage you to like speak up for yourself. Finally, we also have a lot of action in your 8th house. So starting with last month, North Node entered your 8th house. In February on the 14th, Mercury enters Pisces and the Sun enters Pisces, your 8th house, on the 18th. And then we get a new moon here on February 27th. And so this is interesting. I would encourage you to look back at September 2024 when we had a lunar eclipse in Pisces, because this new moon may build on what happened in September. And then we're going to have a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces again in September 2025. So all of this is to say that you are looking at your past and you're maybe healing you're becoming more aware of your fears, and those could be connected to death. Those could be connected to losing people, losing some kind of security in your life. Those could also be, there could be important shifts in relationships where you are opening yourself up and becoming more vulnerable by sharing things with your partner, by opening a joint bank account and starting a new chapter together. I can definitely see quite a possibility here, as well as a need to separate yourself from agreements and dependencies and matters that are toxic and do not serve you. If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. In the shop section, you can pick up my electional report, which breaks down the best times and dates in February to take action romantically, professionally, etc. And you can also get a horoscope subscription in the subscription section of my website to talk to me every month in person or get written reports every month. For the beautiful Virgo rising, in January, the North Node entered your 7th house and South Node went into your 1st house, highlighting a need to create better balance between your personal goals, maybe release some self-defeating patterns, take care of your health, and focusing you on your relationships. Mars retrograded into your 11th house, and we had a full moon in Cancer, which is more focused on relationships, but this time around friendships and alliances. Maybe you needed to kind of revisit your agreements with friends, maybe reconnect with old friends or solve some problems. You may have spent more time thinking about making or connecting with children during Capricorn season, maybe dating more, maybe feeling more playful and connecting with your passions and hobbies. An Aquarius season with the Sun and Mercury both coming into Aquarius and conjoining Pluto later in the month may have emphasized your house of work, health, and service, maybe encouraging you to deal with some bad habits, take care of your health, maybe highlighted sort of power struggles in the professional context, encouraging you to let some things or some people go. February starts off with Venus entering Aries, your 8th house, on February 4th. Venus stays here until March 27th, goes retrograde on March 1st. So you're looking at your finances, you're looking at maybe where you overspending, where you're not spending enough, you're maybe looking at your debts and thinking of paying those off. Venus entering Aries can bring benefits to your partner. Maybe your partner is becoming more proactive and making more money. You're maybe also looking at how fair your relationships are and how fair your compensation is for your part. So having to look at these like a little bit uncomfortable topics around sharing finances, debts is all a sign of Venus in the 8th. And when she goes retrograde, even more so, right? It's going to be the time when you can no longer hide from things you might choose to sweep under the rug. Jupiter goes direct in your 10th house of career on February 4th, which is a positive forward momentum energy in the house of public life, right? It could suggest that if you've been waiting on a promotion, it's coming. If you've been negotiating with someone and they've been taking a while getting back to you, you may finally hear back from them. It might also be just the green light you needed to take a leap, right? To venture out into the unknown, to figure out a different role for yourself, make a different kind of name for yourself professionally. Mars is retrograde in your 11th house until February 23rd, and so there still might be some type of passive-aggressive behavior from friends or colleagues. Maybe you're fighting with people on social media and they're being sort of snarky and prickly. There may be, if you're working on some kind of dream or a group project, Mars retrograde might make things complicated where nobody seems to agree, but nobody's openly disagreeing. So Mars going direct on February 23rd will offer you a chance to come to more of an agreement, more of an understanding. So that could be quite positive. Of course, Mars is still in its fall in Cancer and it stays in Cancer until April 18th. So dealing with passive aggressive energy, dealing with energetic ups and downs is also quite likely. That's going to continue, but I feel like once it goes direct, you at least have more clarity on how you want to proceed, and it goes direct on February 23rd. The sun is in Aquarius until February 18th, and Mercury is here until February 14th. We just had a new moon at the end of January, and we've had a lot of that Sun-Pluto energy in your 6th house. So I think whatever you realized about bad habits, if you realize that there is something shady going on at work, or you've discovered a health issue or a habit that demands your attention, with the Sun and Mercury in Aquarius, you're very much like continuing to work through it. And there might be opportunities to improve your work life, to take care of your health, to, invest into your diet and exercise routine and take better, and like kind of improve your life in the maybe less glamorous yet very, very necessary ways. On February 12th, we get the full moon in Leo, your 12th house, which is a completion of a spiritual cycle, of a cycle of like mental health growth that got started in August with the new moon in Leo. And the full moon in the 12th is a chance for you to give yourself the love and support and affection that maybe you feel like you lack at work, or, like as a Virgo rising, everyone knows that you're very hard on yourself and you can be quite critical. And so I think the full moon in the 12th is this chance to like celebrate every single accomplishment, no matter how small it feels to you, because to you it might be small, but to someone else it might be impressive and astounding and worthy of putting on their wall and celebrating it. So a chance to kind of give yourself what you deserve and see your true self for who you are is highlighted here. As well as the full moon in the 12th house might be perhaps an acknowledgement that you no longer like where you work and you need to let that go. There might be a transformation in your mental health. There might be like, you may be releasing a bad habit. You're maybe transforming your routines around sleep, around self-care, and kind of looking at all these hidden blind spots where maybe you're sabotaging yourself. And then your house of relationships is active from February 14th. It's active all month because North Node is now here for the next year and a half. But on the 14th, Mercury enters Pisces. Happy Valentine's Day. And then on the 18th, the Sun enters Pisces. So Mercury is your chart ruler, and it will be in Pisces until March 3rd, from the 14th until March 3rd. And it's in its detriment in Pisces, so you may notice that you're very relationship oriented, but maybe a little bit too kind of dreamy and not grounded. So try to kind of ground yourself and be more reasonable. Don't just you're a Virgo rising, but your 7th house is Pisces, and you can be a little bit like, you may struggle with boundaries when it comes to relationships. So there will be a lot of focus on relationships. There will be a possibility of like a new love or a commitment or a business new beginning, especially around the new moon on February 27th. But I think you need to be a little bit more grounded. And I would highly recommend my Mercury in Virgo candle for you guys, because it's your Mercury. And while Mercury is in Pisces, you can benefit from this. And pay attention to, the new moon on February 27th, because we had an eclipse in Pisces in September 2024, and we have another eclipse in September 2025. And so this new moon is like a midpoint. And I think it's quite significant considering that the North Node is here. So I think it's a sign of like healing in relationships and big new beginnings in relationships as you let go of maybe criticism. So it's maybe even a new beginning in your relationship with yourself, or an upcoming wedding, an upcoming engagement, things like that. Please share if this resonates. For more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. I did an electional report for February, giving you the best dates and times to take action, to for professional action, for love, etc. You can find it in the shop section of my website, and you can also become my subscriber and start getting written horoscopes at the start of every month, or you can also talk to me every month. My beautiful Libra risings, in January, North Node enters Pisces, your 6th house of work, health, and service, and South Node entered Virgo, encouraging you to release some self-defeating tendencies and focus on creating a better flow in your work, health, and service-related life. Mars retrograding through your house of career as well brought up potentially a lot of professional questions and made you reconsider how you do things or renegotiate certain matters. Please share if that's what happened. Definitely has been a thing for me as a Libra rising. Capricorn season encouraged you to stay more local, connect with family, and maybe think about improving your living situation. And finally, as the Sun and Mercury entered Aquarius and conjoined Pluto, on around January 21st and January 29th, you may have dealt with some obsessive or difficult thoughts related to romance, pleasure, parenthood, and children, as well as discovered some new passions, right? It doesn't all need to be dark, even when we are talking about Pluto. In February, on the 4th, Venus enters Aries, your 7th house. The goddess of love will stay here until March 27th. And this is your chart ruler going into the house of relationships. She will also go retrograde on March 1st, which is interesting because Venus being here direct all month, she's already, in her shadow, right? Because she's going to retrograde out of Aries. So the entirety of her journey through Aries will be repeated while Venus is retrograde. But it can bring up a new partnership. It can bring up a new relationship into your life. There may be new beginnings in your romantic life that will then maybe need to be reconsidered. You might meet someone and things look beautiful, but then you discover that they're going to jail. Too dramatic. Or you discover that, there's maybe something about them that you didn't know, or they live far away and you need to figure things out. Worth noting that Venus is also in her detriment in Aries, so while in general it's a pretty positive transit for your 7th house, the goddess of love being in detriment might suggest that there's a little bit, too much love for the chase versus the conquest, that maybe you're a little bit too competitive with your partner where you don't need to be competitive. And maybe you're needing to sort of be more aware of your, kind of restlessness or knee-jerk reactions in relationships. Jupiter goes direct on February 4th in your 9th house, which is a positive shift and a forward momentum when it comes to travel, education, writing, and publishing matters. You may feel more clear about what you're doing in that sector of your life, start planning your next trip, sign up for a class, or become a teacher. I'm actually thinking of offering my first course this year, or maybe 2, we'll see. So Mars is still retrograde and it's still in Cancer. It's in Cancer all month. The retrograde ends on February 23rd, but so you're basically continuing to ask important questions about your work life, maybe looking back at your passions from before, maybe rethinking your strategy, maybe rethinking, what is worth your time, what is worth your energy. When Mars goes direct on the 23rd, it is of course a major change. It does suggest that things start to move forward, especially if you've been in the middle of some kind of confusing negotiation or you've been waiting for a response. You may get more clarity and more forward momentum. However, Mars is in its fall in Cancer, which does suggest that the tendency to be passive-aggressive, either you being passive-aggressive or people you work with, which is actually even more likely, is still here the whole time. Mars is in Cancer until April 18th, and your energy levels might be a bit uneven. As well, Mars also rules your house of partnerships, and so your partner, your spouse, might be experiencing this as quite a difficult transit. I highly recommend my Mars Kazemi candle, as well as Venus in Libra, 2 or 3, as remedies, both for the upcoming Venus retrograde and the relationship confusion it might bring, and the professional drama with Mars retrograding in Cancer. Find it on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. So the Aquarius, the sun is in Aquarius until February 18th. And we just had a new moon in Aquarius in late January, right? And we've had a lot of Sun, Mercury, Pluto action. So whatever was happening in your romantic life in regards to your child, in regards to your creativity in the end of January, continues throughout most of February until February 18th, right? So if you've discovered something about your child, you found out that your child is skipping school, you're spending time trying to get things figured out. If you've dealt with some disagreement with your partner, you discovered some, like they have a gambling problem or they disagree with how you spend money, there might be some type of focus there as well. Any fears, any obsessive thoughts, difficult emotions you may have encountered in late January, you will continue to work through in February. We get a full moon in Leo, your 11th house, on February 12th, which represents a completion of a creative project, a change in a friendship, an ending of a partnership, or potentially some kind of culmination, celebration of how far you've come. In fact, I would encourage you to celebrate how far you've come regardless of what happens, even if you're closing some kind of chapter, because the full moon in Leo is very much the time to connect with your heart and to let yourself be playful, creative, and to step into the spotlight. Of course, you have to remember that you're not the only one experiencing the full moon in Leo. It affects all of us. So do make sure that you're not sort of holding the spotlight too tightly. Make sure you share it with other people. And there is a bit of tension between your house of social media, your dreams, your friendships, with this and the Sun and Mercury both being in the 5th house of romance and pleasure. So you may also need to navigate disagreements or social dynamics and figure out what is conducive to your creative self-expression, what is conducive to the life of your child, what is conducive to your romantic relationship, and what maybe needs to be released, right? Like there might be some drama with friends that is just stressing you out and you don't want to deal with it, and nobody would blame you for setting boundaries when it comes to that. The Sun enters Pisces on February 18th. Mercury enters Pisces on the 14th. Mercury is in its detriment in Pisces, so while it's good for creative work, you may struggle with being focused. You may notice that you're a little bit like dreamy. I have a candle for that, of course. Mercury in Virgo is the perfect antithesis, a perfect remedy basically for this transit. But both of these planets going into the 6th house, they're joining Saturn, they're joining Neptune, they're joining North Node. They're emphasizing your 6th house of work, your 6th house of hard labors, right? We get the new moon here on February 27th. And the new moon is, we've had an eclipse here. We've had a lunar eclipse in your 6th house in September. What was happening in terms of your work life, in your health, in terms of your service to other people, even in terms of pets. The new moon is an opportunity to take what you've discovered in September, learn from it, and then be ready for another eclipse in September 2025. But all of this feels like you are getting clear on what is worth investing into. You're maybe committing to your health, starting to take better care of your body, exercising more. You're maybe committing to a work project. You're maybe releasing something toxic and like letting go of a bad habit. If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Pick up my electionary astrology for February breakdown, where I give you the best dates and times throughout this month to start projects, to go on dates, anything romantic, professional, creative, inspired. Could be helpful to know how to maximize astrology to your advantage, as well as pick up my horoscope subscription on my website as well to get written breakdowns or to talk to me every month about the energy that's coming up. For the beautiful Scorpio rising, in January, North Node entered your 5th house and South Node entered your 11th, and you may have focused more on the topics of love, pleasure, parenthood, and children, and realized that something in your social life needs to be changed or rethought. Mars retrograded into your 9th house, bringing up questions around beliefs, education, travel, religion, philosophy. Capricorn season highlighted your 3rd house of siblings, neighbors, communication. You may have gone on more short trips, thought of new ideas, or wrote new poems, perhaps if you are a creative individual, and rethought the logistics of your life. You maybe needed to make some small adjustments. And the Sun and Mercury both entered Aquarius later in the month and conjoined Pluto, bringing maybe some skeletons came out of the closet. You've discovered some secrets about family, or you've realized that you want to move. Some kind of important tectonic shifts in the house of home and family and living situation could have been introduced to you, which actually continues throughout February, at least until February 18th. With Mercury and the Sun in Aquarius. So you're spending time with family, you're improving home, you're dealing with the fallout of the discoveries you may have experienced in late January, right? So if you've learned a secret about family, maybe a parent told you that they spent all of their retirement, and so you're trying to figure out what to do with that. Maybe in late January there was like a piping issue in your home, or something else that you're needing to deal with. So focus on the home family dynamics is quite strong. The month begins with Venus entering Aries. Well, she conjoins Neptune first, but Venus enters Aries on February 4th, stays here until March 27th. This is your 6th house, so you are you sort of desire to take care of the minute. You may notice that you're more focused on your health, you're kind of making doctor's appointments, you're taking better care of your diet, you're eating healthier, and you're enjoying spending time with colleagues or colleague-like type figures. Even hanging out with your dogs suddenly maybe feels more joyful. Venus stays here until March 27th, goes retrograde on March 1st. So some of the professional action, maybe your health protocols you'll be rethinking them. You'll be looking at them more closely when the retrograde begins. Jupiter goes direct in Gemini, your 8th house, on February 4th, which is a positive momentum shift when it comes to resources you share with others and resources others share with you. So if you've been negotiating some kind of collaboration, but haven't heard anything solid, or you've been waiting for a loan to come through, or you've been thinking about paying off a debt, Jupiter going direct can give you like kind of opportunities to pay off that debt, get that loan, hear back from that partner that you're waiting for. Mars, your chart ruler, is retrograde in your 9th house until February 23rd. And you're continuing to question. 9th house can be very philosophical, right? So Mars retrograde in the 9th could be your beliefs around parenthood, your beliefs around love, marriage, what kind of mother you want to be, what kind of partner you want to be, what kind of employee you want to be. So there might be a lot of like spiritual adjustment. There might be some educational kind of rethinking you're doing. Maybe you're reapplying or going back to school. Maybe you're dealing with some legal matters, some visas, waiting on some papers to come through. Maybe you're rewriting something. 9th house is the house of publishing. When Mars goes direct, and this is your chart ruler, so it's extra important, on February 23rd, you may notice a bit more of finally sort of forward momentum. If you've been feeling stuck, you may start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. If you've been dealing with these like legal negotiations or education confusion, Mars direct can bring more clarity. Mars will stay in Cancer until April 18th, and Cancer is the sign of its fall, so you may still deal with some passive aggression, passive-aggressive behavior. Maybe you're feeling a little bit frustrated but can't express it fully. Or maybe your teachers, your mentors are acting a little bit irritatingly, but you can't say anything because they're, authority figures. And you may also notice that your energy is a little bit uneven because Mars in its fall might bring that. Highly recommend my Mars Kazemi candle if you're looking for astrological remedy, because it's Mars in Scorpio, which is your sign. It could be perfect for you. On February 12th, we get the full moon in Leo, your 10th house, and it could bring a sense of change in your professional life. Look back at August 2024 when we had a new moon in Leo. You know, if you started a new project, if you started looking for a job, if you just started a new job, maybe you finish the project, maybe you find a job, maybe you feel ready for a new job, right? There might be like some kind of important transformations here. It's also your sort of what's happening in the home gets pinned against your dreams and your professional desires, as you're asking whether you can find a good balance between the two of them. There may be, I think you're looking a lot at your desire for recognition, and you're wondering whether what's happening with your family, all the drama is it going to allow you to have the recognition that you seek? But there might be some kind of professional adjustment in order here. On February 14th, Mercury enters Pisces, your 5th house. On the 18th, the Sun enters Pisces. And on the 27th, we have a new moon here. All of that highlights your house of romance, pleasure, parenthood, and children. With the new moon, there are, of course, new beginnings here. A new relationship. Maybe you're dating someone chatty with Mercury being here. A new chapter in an existing relationship, like getting pregnant, trying to have a kid, or having a child. Or maybe starting a creative collaboration with your significant other, a new passion. And this is all part of a longer storyline, right? We've had North Node enter Pisces in January. We've had a lunar eclipse in Pisces in September. So there might be kind of a line running through those dates. But what's happening is you're separating with Virgo's South Node in the 11th. You're separating from the need to be approved of by other people. You're releasing a need to be perfect on many levels, and you're connecting with your heart, you're connecting with your joy, with your childlike energy, and you're having more fun romantically, creatively. You're letting yourself be the true parent you want to be, right? It could be quite like an empowering spiritual transit. For more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Pick up my horoscope subscription to get monthly breakdowns either sent to you at the start of every month, or you can do 30-minute consultation with me every month. And in the shop section, get my electional breakdown of February, where I give you the best times, specific times and dates that can be beneficial for your love life, for your career, and other things. Find it at anastasiadoesastrology.com. For the beautiful Sagittarius rising, January brought a lot of focus to your houses of career and your home life, with North Node in Pisces and South Node in Virgo, your 4th and 10th houses. Mars retrograded through Cancer, your 8th house, and the Sun in Capricorn both highlighted questions of money and values, and whether your priorities and your values match up with those people in your life. And if they're not, it may have encouraged some difficult conversations, some sort of negotiations, some adjustments in terms of paying debts, or in terms of joining resources with your significant other maybe, or even negotiating better sort of student loan rates with the bank or something like that. And later in the month, when Mercury and the Sun entered Aquarius and conjoined Pluto in your 3rd house, you may have noticed more intensity to your communication, more focused on relationships with siblings, maybe new passions or realizations about your own thoughts and your own beliefs, and how those maybe are destructive or unhealthy for you. In February, Venus enters Aries on February 4th and stays here until March 27th. She will go retrograde on March 1st. So Venus in Aries, she's in her house Joy, in your 5th house, in the whole sign house system, which is what I use. And Venus in the 5th house is very playful. She is quite likely to bring you a romantic interest if you're single. If you're in a relationship, you're maybe having more fun, going out, dancing, partying, having a good time. If you're a parent, you might enjoy more time with children. However, because Venus is in her detriment in Aries, there might be a bit of a danger of being too competitive with your partner, or going for people who are very exciting but maybe not so stable, or enjoying drama more than sort of peace in a relationship. So be careful with that. And then the upcoming retrograde might also encourage you to rethink some of the choices you made. So think twice before making major commitments, I'd say. And if you're looking for astrological support with Venus in detriment in the upcoming retrograde, Venus in Libra too is perfect because it also has Sagittarius on the ascendant. Jupiter goes direct in your house of relationships on February 4th. This is awesome. You are ruled by Jupiter. Your chart ruler stationing direct is an absolutely positive shift. If you've dealt with any health issues in the past, or you felt confused, if you felt uncertain how to maybe connect your home life with your relationship, with your personal life, Jupiter going direct is a forward momentum. It can also bring a forward momentum to the life of your partner if they have dealt with any uncertainty. So Mars stays in Cancer, your 8th house, all months. It's retrograde until February 23rd, and you're still dealing with maybe a little bit of uncertainty, conflicts around money, uncertainty around debts and loans and taxes and any kind of payments. Maybe you're waiting for a payment from a client. Maybe you're negotiating child support with your ex. Maybe you're talking to your bosses about a raise and they're not being clear. So when Mars goes direct on February 23rd, this could be a significant shift where things finally start to move forward. However, Mars is in Cancer until April 18th, and Mars is in its fall in Cancer, meaning that yes, there's going to be some forward momentum, but chances are you still might feel frustrated, and watch out for expressing anger in a passive-aggressive way. Try to be honest and patient and kind while you do it. And you may also notice that maybe like your energy is a little bit inconsistent. But I think Mars going direct should be quite supportive in terms of getting loans that you've been waiting for, getting a raise that you've been promised, even having more clarity when it comes to getting insurance or paying off any debts that you have. The sun is in Aquarius until February 18th, and you're continuing to work on new ideas. You're maybe continuing to deal with siblings and neighbors. We just had a new moon here in late January. We had the Sun and Mercury conjoining Pluto in late January. So whatever kind of intense topics were introduced to you at the end of January, whether it was some kind of drama that you're now trying to sort through, or whether it was maybe a new passion, new idea, new discovery that you made, you may continue to develop those skills, learn that language, work on that business idea, business proposal. All of that is quite nice. The full moon in Leo on February 12th gives you a chance to connect with the big picture and your big desires, as well as connect with your heart and ask for recognition. It also completes the chapter started on August 4th with the new moon in Leo in the 9th house, and marks a turning point where you graduate or you start school if you've been thinking of applying. You're maybe finishing a project. You may be finishing some kind of relationship with a foreign person or a foreign partner. You're maybe letting go of some kind of beliefs as well, right? With the Sun in Aquarius and Mercury in Aquarius in your 3rd house, encouraging you to rethink your ideas and reevaluate your relationships with people around you. The full moon in Leo might be an invitation to look at things differently and to be like, well, this is not working for me. This is not who I am. It might also be, there might be a change around where you live with this full moon in Leo in the 9th house, where maybe you're relocating or moving, especially if you've been thinking about that. Mercury enters Pisces, your 4th house, on February 14th. It's good for talking about home, family, and chatting with family members, but Mercury is in its detriment in Pisces. And so it can be a little bit unfocused and sort of not good at follow through. Mercury rules your house of partnerships. You may also notice, and your house of careers. You may also notice that affecting your bosses more so than you or your significant other. The sun is here from February 18th until March 20th, and we get a new moon in Pisces on February 27th. So there's, it's a new moon in the sign of the North Node. It's not an eclipse because it's pretty far from the North Node, but it's along the lines of the eclipses, right? We've had a lunar eclipse in Pisces in September. We have another one coming up again in September, but now 2025. So things are changing in terms of where you live. Things are changing in terms of what makes you feel comfortable and secure. Things are changing in your family. And so this new moon is an opportunity to kind of get clear on what you want to build, I think. What you want to build spiritually, literally, and relationally. And so it's an opportunity to, I think, start looking for a home, to maybe connect with family, to start building a new relationship with family. And even it feels like, I don't know, like I keep thinking of some kind of like spiritual sanctuary for yourself. Maybe it's an invitation to build like a happier, more chill, more peaceful and beautiful home that you feel easy and rested in. And that applies to relationships, right? Like sometimes you need to set boundaries with people that take away from your peace. Let me know how this resonates. Pick up my February electional astrology report, which breaks down the best dates and gives you the exact times for when to take action. I also describe how to adjust it for your location. You can do that at anastasiadoesastrology.com in the shop, and you can book a reading on my website as well, or pick up a horoscope subscription. Here are all the options. If you are a Capricorn rising, in January, North Node entered Pisces and South Node entered Virgo, highlighting your desire to maybe start a business, become a writer, and reinvent your everyday life and maybe release some kind of tendency to overthink. Mars retrograded into your 7th house of relationships. We also had the full moon here, so there could have been some kind of confusion, a need to address old conflicts and disagreements in your relationship sector. You could have become more clear about what you want and made changes to your look during Capricorn season. And finally, the Sun and Mercury entering Aquarius and conjoining Pluto in your 2nd house brought a lot of attention to money and resources and values, as well as your priorities and what you want to invest into. In February, Venus enters Aries on February 4th. She stays here until late March and will go retrograde on March 1st. So Venus entering Aries is the time you are drawn to spend more time with family. You're maybe spending more time indoors, hosting events. You may be going to more house parties, and if you're single, meeting a love interest at a house party or meeting a love interest through family. Maybe they are a friend of your mother or a friend of your, family friends or something like that. Venus in Aries is in her detriment, so watch out for being too competitive with family or maybe too abrupt and rush. And the fact that Venus will go retrograde, I would also urge you to not make major decisions when it comes to moving, because if you move right before Venus goes retrograde, sometimes you may need to you realize that something was not quite right. But yeah, dating someone from your hometown, spending more romantic evenings indoors are some of the more positive possibilities here. Jupiter goes direct in Gemini, your 6th house, on February 4th, which should bring more clarity and forward momentum to your house of health, work, and service. So professionally, if you've been waiting for a project, you may hear that it's been assigned to you. Health-wise, you may get over a health issue. And just also maybe like feeling more clear in terms of what is worth your time versus what is not. Those are all kind of pretty good possibilities here. And if you've been thinking about getting a dog or a cat, Jupiter going direct in the 6th house could be the time when you finally say, I'll do it. Let's get me one. I want it. Mars is in Cancer all month, your 7th house, so there's still a lot of focus on learning how to fight and how to speak your truth in relationships. There's a lot of focus on negotiating and maybe like clearing the air. Mars goes direct on February 23rd, which should be more helpful for you to actually deal with frustration more constructively. However, Mars is in its fall in Cancer, and it stays in the sign of its fall until April 18th. So dealing with passive-aggressive behavior, either yours or your partner's, feeling energetic ups and downs, still kind of learning how to harness the energy you have and express it constructively in relationships is very likely. And if you're looking for help in terms of, romantically, I would highly recommend my Exalted Venus candle, because this is Venus in Pisces and we're going to have Venus in detriment. And Exalted Mars are actually really good too, because that can help with assertion, conflicts, and sort of dealing with conflicts healthy. And it's highlighting Mars in Capricorn, which is Mars in your sign. So yeah, be aware that relationships remain a hot topic for a while longer. The Sun and Mercury stay in Aquarius until February 18th, and we just had a new moon in Aquarius on January 29th. In late January, we had a lot of these like Sun, Pluto conjunction, Mercury, Pluto conjunction, and you may have realized some important conflicts of values, or you may have discovered a new passion. You may have dealt with power struggles around money, and so in February until the 18th of the month, you're continuing to brainstorm money-making ideas. You're continuing to also get clear on what's important to you, what you're willing to compromise with versus what you're not willing to compromise with. You're maybe even looking at like partnerships with other people, and thinking about investing, thinking about changing careers, right? Like important developments, both when it comes to finances, but also when it comes to your priorities, are very much signs of this transit. We get the full moon in Leo on February 12th, which is a sign that as you get clear about what you want and what you value, and as you get more clear about money, the full moon offers you a chance to either cut off some kind of debt. You're paying off a debt with this full moon, and look back at what was happening in August 2024 when we had a new moon in your 8th house, which would have been a new beginning. So you're either paying off a debt, or you're closing some kind of partnership. You're maybe even healing, and you're saying no to a relationship that is not good for you. Or the full moon in the 8th house can also be the time to celebrate the partnerships and to commit to partnerships and kind of, move to the next level as you know what you want to do with your money. You come to your partner and you're like, hey, I know we both want to buy a home, but right now I want to go back to school and this is more important to me. So some type of breakthrough in a relationship is a possibility too. And the full moon squares Uranus in the 5th house of romance, pleasure, parenthood. So I wouldn't be surprised if for some of you it's like you got pregnant and now you need to rethink money. Now everything is different. Everything is not the same. I feel like there's a song. What is that song? Everything is different. Everything is not the same. Anyways, if you know, let me know. Mercury enters Pisces, your 3rd house, and the Sun enters Pisces as well. Mercury on the 14th of the month and Sun on the 18th. And this could be very creative and very inspired. We also get a new moon here, and Pisces is very, spiritual and creative. So you're maybe starting a new writing project, you're maybe starting a new collaboration, exploring new ideas, starting a business. And this is very karmic because not only there's a new moon here and the Sun is here, but also North Node is here. And North Node is very much, we've had North Node enter Pisces in January. It's going to stay there for a year and a half. So it's like this Pisces season is especially juicy because it highlights what's going to change in your everyday life. It highlights the ideas that are going to bloom and the projects that are going to take you to the next level, the business you might start, and any kind of communication partnerships and sibling, neighbor, community involvements that are coming up for you. Please share how this resonates. If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Get a subscription if you're craving more contact and more horoscopes from me. And pick up the electional astrology report, which is both a video and a written breakdown of the best times and dates in February to take action romantically, creatively, professionally. You can find it in the shop section of my website. For the lovely Aquarians, in January, there was a lot of focus on your finances with North Node entering Pisces and South Node entering Virgo, highlighting your second house of personal money and values and your eighth house of shared money and values. Mars retrograded through Cancer, your sixth house, which could have encouraged some type of revision in your professional sector and need to rethink your habits, redo some projects, and rethink your relationships with colleagues. You also craved more solitude and focused on your mental health during Capricorn season. And Aquarius season highlighted that new beginning and, that maybe sort of passion and energy that Pluto is bringing into your first house as the Sun and Mercury both conjoined it on January 21st and 29th. And you may have realized that something needs to change. You may have discovered opportunities to reinvent yourself, to speak up, to be the rebellious Promethean character that Pluto wants you to be. So speaking of February, we're going to start with Venus entering Aries on February 4th. She stays here until March 27th and goes retrograde on March 1st. Aries is your third house, so Venus in the third could be quite beneficial for writing. She can bring more creative ideas, more pleasure, spend exploring the neighborhood. You may be venturing outside, making new connections, writing or expressing yourself in speech and writing. Venus in Aries is really beautiful for empowering other women or empowering other people, encouraging their independence, but you got to be careful in terms of being too competitive romantically or in any other relationships, choosing the chase over conquest, instigating a little bit of drama in your relationship simply out of boredom. But because it's your third house, I wonder if it's going to apply more to sibling relationships, neighbor relationships, maybe creative collaborations. And because Venus will go retrograde, you may need to rethink some of the writing you've done, maybe rewrite something, maybe revisit your relationships as well. Jupiter goes direct in your fifth house of romance, pleasure, and children on February 4th, which is a good sign, right? It could bring more forward momentum creatively if you've been struggling with some kind of writer's block, right? Your partner might notice a positive shift because fifth house rules partners and it rules romance, so romantic partners, and your child's life as well. If a child has been going through a more difficult time, Jupiter going direct might be a boost in their optimism, right? Creative inspiration, new relationships, better time in existing relationships, all of those are lovely possibilities. Mars stays in Cancer all month, your sixth house, and it's retrograde until February 23rd. So the first 3 weeks of the month, you're still dealing with, it feels like Mars retrograde in the sixth feels like being locked up in a basement full of family memorabilia, and you have to clear it up because I don't know, the grandfather just passed away and you have to sort through it. So Mars retrograding through your sixth house might feel like there is more work, that maybe you're going back over things, dealing with some kind of drudgery, people not getting back to you. Maybe colleagues feel irritating as they're not helping you, but creating more problems, and you feel annoyed, but you can't say anything. So when Mars goes direct on the 23rd, you will likely feel a bit more of agency and ability to deal with it. However, Mars is in its fall in Cancer, and it stays in Cancer until April 18th. So Mars retrograding through your sixth house of romance, pleasure, and children on February 5th. So the first 3 weeks of the month, you're still dealing with some kind of writing you have done, maybe rewrite something, maybe revisit your you know, still a little bit of passive aggressive energy, energetic ups and downs, all of that is a possibility, but at least it's going to be moving direct. So at least you would have learned how to organize that basement or dungeon, and you're now kind of taking forward steps. And it might also be, you know, with Mars retrograding in Cancer in your 6th house, you may be dealing with some kind of health matters or bad habits or health matters of family members. And so when Mars goes direct, there is at least some type of solution appearing, right? And clarity and forward momentum. With the Sun in Aquarius until February 18th, you're still continuing to work on self-development. I think whatever God revealed to you in late January, maybe you've discovered some type of passion, some type of topic you need to speak on. Maybe you've dealt with some kind of opposition. The Sun in Aquarius and Mercury in Aquarius. Mercury is here until the 14th. The Sun is until 18th. Both of them should help you be more aware of who you are and what you want. You're talking more about yourself. You're maybe even writing about yourself. You're more clear and you're exploring new goals. And it's quite likely that your new goals will require you to show up in the world as a more powerful version of yourself. There's a full moon in Leo on February 12th, your 7th house of relationships. So it's, you know, the full moon is always opposition between the Sun. This time around, the Sun is close to Mercury and the moon. And so there is a bit of tension and a need to rethink your relationships in response to the personal transformations that you're going through. So you are, you know, it's a rethinking of a relationship. It's also a completion of the cycle started in August 2024 when we had a new moon in Leo. And you may have met a new person, you may have gotten engaged or married or moved in together, and now we have a full moon. So a relationship either blossoms and grows and transforms, or you may be realizing that it has run its course and you're separating and parting ways. And of course, if it's a strong relationship, you have nothing to worry about, but there might be a need for some kind of adjustment romantically or in a business partnership or in terms of a contract. It could even be about your lease that you signed on your apartment, right? And your relationship with your landlord or your nanny or your gardener. Like any type of like one-on-one contractual agreement falls under the umbrella of the 7th house. Mercury enters Pisces, your 2nd house of money and values, on February 14th, stays here until March 3rd, and the Sun enters Pisces on February 18th. And then we get the new moon here on the 27th of the month. So this is important and this is karmic because North Node is in Pisces and will be in Pisces until July 2026. So you're looking at your values and you're rethinking your priorities. And then in response to that, you may also be examining your finances and figuring out a new investment account or a new mortgage or a new loan, some kind of, you know, refinancing that you want to do, or you're starting to look for a better job so that you have more financial security. Just watch out with Mercury in Pisces and Mercury being in its detriment in Pisces that you're maybe a little bit like, you want to have more stability, but you're letting money seep through your fingers because you're just like, oh, here, there, everywhere. And like, then you're realizing that the choices maybe weren't so well thought through, well thought out. And reflect back on what was happening in your life in September 2024 when we had a lunar eclipse in Pisces, because that would have been maybe, you know, a completion, but also like an introduction of the Pisces eclipses themes. And we're going to have another lunar eclipse in Pisces in September 2025. So your priorities, your sort of maybe need for more spiritual, soulful healing type of work or healing resources could be highlighted with these eclipses. So it could even be about like investing into education or investing into getting regular like Reiki sessions, things like that. Do share how this resonates. If you're looking for more, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Pick up my electional astrology for February breakdown, where I give you the perfect dates and exact times when to send that email, say that you love someone, take professional, personal action, You can find it in the shop section of my website. And you can also pick up a horoscope subscription if you want more one-on-one time with me. For the beautiful Pisces rising, January was quite significant with North Node entering Pisces and South Node entering Virgo. Both your house of identity and your house of relationships had strong spotlights shining on them, and that will continue all the way until July 2026. Mars retrograded into Cancer, spending the whole month in your house of romance, pleasure, parenthood, and children, encouraging important questions around sexuality, around being a parent, around love and creativity. Capricorn season until about January 19 offered you opportunities to network, socialize. Maybe you went out with friends or connected with new passions. And then as the planets shifted into your 12th house from January 19th, they went into Aquarius, conjoined Pluto. We had a new moon in your 12th house. There could have been a strong sense of like your mental health being more dominant and important, right? Like Mercury conjoining Pluto on the 29th and Sun conjoining Pluto on the 21st are like, both could have been like, the first one maybe on the 21st maybe created some kind of like powerful, intense feeling or emotional or like emotion or encounter or some kind of realization, both about like mental health and self-defeating tendencies or about some kind of passion, right? With the 12th house, it could be about, I realize that I want to be a Reiki healer, or I want to be a yoga teacher, or I even want to like move to India to be close to true yogis, things like that. And in February, you're very much continuing with this energy because the Sun stays in Aquarius until February 18th. So if you've discovered mental health issues, maybe you're like doubling down on seeing a therapist, or you're doing more yoga, or you're kind of focusing on your mental health and doing things that are supportive for you, or you're learning about Reiki healing, right? Because you're very much set on becoming a Reiki practitioner. Please share if you've noticed the late January bringing up a lot of questions around like mental health, healing, escaping, getting away, things like that. Venus enters Aries, your second house of money and values, on February 4th and will stay here until late March. She will be retrograde between March 1st and April 12th. And Venus in the second house could be quite beneficial financially. You may be getting some kind of, payments coming through. You may also be spending more, buying more gifts, maybe buying more kind of tokens of appreciation for different people. You can say thank you to me and buy me a token of appreciation, no pressure. But it's, Venus in the second house could also encourage you to do work and like explore passions that are creative and lucrative at the same time. And she can also encourage you to do things in partnership. However, Venus is in her detriment in Aries, so you may be a little bit more competitive, a little bit more like dramatic, even romantically. You may notice that you're like, more likely to jump to like anger or irritation. Highly recommend my Exalted Venus candle. This is Venus in Pisces. It's your first house. It's beautiful and it smells amazing, so it can help you just chill and navigate the more like difficult, combative, irritating energy, because we're going to have Venus in detriment and we're going to have Mars in its fall simultaneously in February. So much fun. But yeah, and and when Venus goes retrograde in March and April, maybe you are rethinking what you spent on. So don't make, just be very thoughtful about big financial decisions. And maybe you're like also rethinking what your priorities are and what is worth investing into versus what is not. Jupiter, your chart ruler, goes direct on February 4th. This is awesome. Jupiter rules you. So when the planet of growth, expansion, optimism, and abundance goes direct, you may start to feel like you're going direct, and you may be noticing more clarity around family, around where you see yourself living or your living situation in general, maybe even healing past, healing childhood wounds. If you're in real estate or if you're working for a family business, all of that can be benefited from Jupiter going direct as well. especially if you've dealt with some type of slowdowns there. Mars is in Cancer all month. It's in your 5th house and it's retrograde until February 23rd. So for some of you, you're maybe dealing with the past relationship. Someone from your past came back into your life and is trying to claw their way back in. You're maybe dealing with some kind of like sexual frustration and some type of like, I don't know, feeling uninspired, feeling like your love life is lacking some spunk and trying to bring it back, ingest it back. You're maybe dealing with, maybe your child is going through a bit of a more frustrating period, or you're questioning matters related to parenthood, and like feeling uninspired creatively, not just sexually, are all possibilities here. So like needing to go back to the source, needing to remind yourself what inspires you or what used to inspire you, I think are all good kind of practices here. So take yourself on a date, take yourself dancing, paint, remind yourself of the hobbies you once used to have. Mars goes direct on February 23rd, so that will likely feel like a positive momentum shift. It will bring some answers, especially later in March. But of course, Venus will go retrograde then, so we're not out of the woods yet. Mars, however, is still in the sign of its fall until April 18th, so be careful with being passive-aggressive, with saying things that are, you know, kind of indirect but hurting people, and also know that your energy might be a bit inconsistent. We get the full moon in Leo, your 6th house, on February 12th, completing the chapter started on August 4th with a new moon in Leo. And there could be, you know, maybe you're celebrating 6 months at a job and you're feeling accomplished. Maybe you're getting over a health issue, or you're making some kind of commitment to take better care of yourself. The full moon is opposite the sun and Mercury in your 12th house. So it's all about like the connection between your spiritual life, your mental health, and your physical health. And so the full moon encourages you to look at your physical health and make some tangible choices to your job, to your habits, to your diet, to your exercise routine, right? Maybe it's time to start working out again so that you can have a better mental health. Like do tangible things so that in your head it feels more stable. Mercury enters Pisces on February 14th, will stay here until March 3rd. You become more chatty, you're more willing to talk about yourself, you are more self-aware, you may be more willing to write. And then the sun enters Pisces on February 18th, will stay here until March 20th, with the new moon in Pisces on February 27th. So with the new moon in close proximity to the North Node, it's not close enough to be an eclipse, but it's in the sign of the North Node, right? This is an inception of something. It's an inception of a new you. And that could include changing your look, that could include changing your role in life, that could include taking on more creative projects, right? Changing kind of how you describe yourself. And that could be anything, right? For some people, this major new cycle could be about relocating to a snowy, cold New York. For others, it could be about becoming a parent. For someone else, it could be about starting a travel blog and like going off to work on their own, becoming a writer, right? There's like a lot of possibilities, but reflect back on September 2024 when we had the first lunar eclipse in Pisces. And even further back, look at 2006, 2007. How has your life changed? Maybe you've started a major chapter and now you're ready for a new one. And yeah, be ready to connect with your heart and to let yourself trust that the universe has your back, and be ready to kind of venture on a new path, especially if you think that Jupiter is entering Cancer just like 4 months from now in June, and it's going to be exalted and it's going to be in the house of creativity, pleasure, romance, parenthood. So like, you know, the new chapter might involve you coming out to your parents and telling them that you're bisexual or, you know, gay, whatever you are, however you identify with, or starting a creative chapter or becoming a parent. Please share if you know what that might be, or maybe you don't know yet, which is totally fine too. And if you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Pick up my first ever electional astrology report for the month of February in the shop. There is a written summary and a video summary of the important dates and exact times to send that email, to tell that person you like them, and do other deeds with really kind of good astrological universe supporting you potential. You can also become my subscriber. All of that is on my website as well. And the report, the electional report, is in the shop. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I love you guys. I appreciate every single one of you tuning in to watch my content. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.